on. We're live.
Hello,
Not live.
hello everyone. Welcome to the OCNA March Madness meeting. As it's raining, and it might be another miracle March here in lovely Oceanside. Anyway, welcome. We have a very interesting topic tonight. This is Jayme Timberlake she's our coastal zone administrator that we stole from the City of Encinitas because she did a really great job down there. And as you know, they have big beach issues, but we have worse beach issues. So I think it was amazing that we were able to hire her and help her focus on doing something with our beaches, which affects our quality of life and also our economy, both in a very big way. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jayme go through a presentation and just kind of catch us up and get us all on the same page. And then she's going to open it up for question and answers and more. So if you could wait till after the presentation to ask questions, I think that would be great because she may be answering it in a subsequent slide. I'd like to introduce, right now Lane is the only other board member. Two of our others are not able to make it tonight. And he's our treasurer and I'm the president. Welcome, Jayme.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Jayme Timberlake. I'm the Coastal Zone Administrator for Oceanside. I've been with the city only since May. This position is brand new to the city, so there's a lot that's being worked out, but in the meantime, as you know, there's a lot of need for projects, and so I'm feverishly working on lots of different aspects of coastal management. So prior to my time in Oceanside, I was the Coastal Zone Administrator for Encinitas, and I was with them for about 4 years. So this is a shot of the part of looking shoreline. I'm not sure if you've been there. It's between the state park, San Diego State Park, and Solana Beach. And it's basically what this project is it's considered a nature-based project, a nature-based solution to coastal erosion and sea level rise. So the dunes that you see are they're totally manufactured. This is a revetment that is buried with sand and then planted with dune species. But this is considered a project that is really highly lauded in the state, and I'm kind of giving you the background on this so you can see like there are these tangible solutions that we can get to that will be approved by the Coastal Commission. This is one example of that. Another project that I helped get going in Encinitas was their Army Corps project. So they had a stalled Army Corps of Engineers 50-year beach nourishment project that was stuck for a while, and so I helped to kind of unstick that, and Congressman Levin helped a lot with that as well. And so Encinitas will be receiving that sand this year. They start construction on that project this year. And then I was able to bring 70,000 cubic yards of opportunistic sand, and I'll talk about that a little bit later about what that is. And that I brought that from Caltrans, from their freeway widening projects. So I'm kind of giving you all this just so you understand that there are these solutions that are out there that we're working towards here in Oceanside. Let's see, and I think I mentioned that my position resides in the city manager's office, so it gives me this kind of great ability to make decisions real fast, or get decisions made real fast, and to have support from the rest of the city staff. I don't have any staff on my own right now, but I'm working on that. So just to kind of review before we get going, so Oceanside has this 80-year erosion problem, and it stems from the construction of the Camp Pendleton boat basin, and then our small craft harbor on top of that. So the Camp Pendleton boat basin was built in 1942. It was built in this area right here. This is the Santa Margarita estuary. This is a picture from archive photos from 1932. So you can kind of take a look at this and notice that it's not really a great place for a harbor. My son joked when I was doing these slides and said, oh, like a Spanish explorer couldn't go in there and like moor their boat there. So And I thought that was pretty funny because, yeah, really it's kind of this oddly placed harbor which has created a whole lot of coastal management needs in our city, and that's really where all of our erosion problems stem from. I think most of you probably understand that, but I just want to make sure to highlight how detrimental this has been to the city's coastline and how much coastal management has been needed since then. So basically what the harbor has done, it has impacted the natural flow of sediment from north to south. So from areas that are north of the harbor, that sediment gets stopped by the harbor. It also impedes flows out of the Santa Margarita estuary, and it has caused some issues with San Luis Rey River mouth as well. So all these kind of impediments, these are common impediments that you see up and down the coast in other harbors, and other communities are dealing with the same exact thing, where there's this consistent need to do sediment management and coastal management. With this harbor in this area, we get very, very little sand naturally moving into our shoreline. So we have contributions from San Luis Rey River, right, like right now, but we don't have a lot of natural sediment flow coming down our creeks and rivers anymore, and then a lot of those natural flowing rivers are impeded by the harbor. So that lack of sediment that gets into our system, coupled with our straight shoreline, really causes issues. So sediment management is not new to the city. Historically, we've been doing it since 1942 for various reasons. We've done it for the harbor construction. So all of the sediment that came out from the harbor construction was placed on our beaches. We do it on an annual basis, and we did it even more frequently in the 1960s to the 80s. We managed the mouth of our harbor. We're gonna be doing that very soon here again. And then we also do these projects where we're placing sand that's just specifically for beach building, and that's called beach nourishment. And those projects are by far mostly done by SandAg. So those are those regional beach sand projects 1 and 2 that were done in 2001 and 2012. But what I wanted to highlight here is something that's really critical. In that red box up there, you'll see the Army Corps dumped about, many millions, 5 million cubic yards of sand on our beaches at a time between the 40s and the 60s, when Oceanside was being developed and our coastline was being developed, and prior to the Coastal Commission as well. So what you have is these kind of artificial beaches, right when we were doing all this development. So that has caused there to be these periods of really boom and bust. So in Oceanside, we experience these periods of really wide beaches following shortly after we do these nourishment events or these sediment or sand management events. And then our beaches go back to shrinking if we don't manage them on a super consistent basis. Let's see, make sure I got all those important parts. One thing to note is that we place over 20 million cubic yards of sand on our beaches, and it still does not retain. And that is due to Oceanside's natural inability to not retain sand. We don't have any reefs, headlands, no natural structures that retain sand whatsoever. We hardly even have any cobble patches that are offshore that could potentially retain some sand. We don't have any of that. We have a very straight coastline, and it's all sand out there. So we have no natural features, and then south of the pier, we have no unnatural features until you get all the way down to Tamarack jetties. So these kind of factors are what consistently contributes to us losing our sand and not able to retain any of it. And now we're in this period where we haven't done a large beach nourishment project for quite some time, for over 10 years now, and so we're in this period of bust. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that sediment management is one thing that I work on from a day-to-day basis, but there are other components of getting these projects approved, and also other things that I'm working on to build our coastal resiliency that don't just involve sand. So I'm trying to kind of change the city's approach to coastal management by taking a more holistic approach and seeing how our policies and our interactions with the state affect our projects, and then also how we're connected to the community and how the community is connected to our beaches, surf resources, and marine resources. And all these things need to be folded in to every project endeavor. So to improve our approach to coastal projects, my day-to-day activities involve mainly these 4 silos or objectives. So I do consistently outreach and education like we're doing tonight, and this helps incorporate community and regional needs into project details, which helps us to successfully implement projects without getting stalled. And then I'm working on short-term protection strategies. Most of the time I'm doing this with Public Works and trying to change their management approach and their operations just ever so slightly so that they can help with more short-term needs like flooding prevention. And so short-term projects, which I'll talk about a little later, that's mostly like sand berming or sand maintenance projects on beaches. And then we have our mid to long-term coastal resilience building projects, and these are the larger projects that take a while to permit and plan. This is our phase 2 sand nourishment and retention pilot project. This is our Army Corps project. And then finally, I'm working with Russ Cunningham and the Development Services Group of the city to integrate our project desires into long-term planning documents. And this helps to keep coastal management a priority at the city, even when things change economically or politically. So I'm busy. I think most folks are probably interested in the mid to long-term projects. These are the ones that will have the most kind of bang for our buck and give us the most resiliency to storms and to sea level rise, and to build back our lost beaches. But these are projects that will probably take about 5 to 7 years to actually be seen on our beaches. So these projects include our phase 2 sand nourishment and pilot projects, sand nourishment and retention pilot projects. Sandag is now doing a regional beach sand project 3. They just kicked that off, or they're beginning to kick that off. But that, even though that's something that we've done in the past, it'll still take 5 to 7 years to get that sand to our beach. We have the larger Buena Vista Lagoon enhancement project, and that is it's pretty far out there still, as Kurt would tell you. Still looking for funding for that project, but once that Buena Vista Lagoon enhancement project comes through, we'll be taking some of that sand and putting it on our beaches in Oceanside. And then there are 2 projects in the works with the Army Corps of Engineers, so that's USACE, sorry for the acronym, I speak in acronyms a lot, but USACE is U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and that's our mitigation study that they have now reinitiated, and that will give us a solution to our problem. It will tell us what we can do, but that's not design or construction, so that one is pretty far out still. And then the other Army Corps project that will have touches on coastal management is the San Luis Rey Restoration Project, which is a flood control project. So just for today, I'm just going to focus on the phase 2 sand nourishment and retention pilot project, but feel free to ask me about any of those other ones, either today or another time. To begin, I'll just give you a brief introduction to what the phase 1 beach sand feasibility study results were. So back in 2019, 2020, the city decided to pursue its own investigation to determine a solution to our chronically eroded beaches, and this was largely the result of the Army Corps failing to deliver on the study, the mitigation study that they were working on in 2015. So that lost funding, and the city said, we're gonna take matters into our own hands and work towards a solution on our own. So the feasibility study reviewed sediment transport on our coast and our current management methods, and then it determined reasons why we can't retain the sand on our beach, and offered a limited scope of how we can retain sand. So very limited scope because it was just a feasibility study. So the phase 1 study, I'm just summarizing, but indicated that we need a better sand source than what we use currently, which we rely pretty heavily on our harbor dredging. And that sand is very fine grained, leaves our beach very fast, and it does not build beach like a larger grain of sand would. So, so that study determined, like, we need to actually find a better sand source for any beach nourishment endeavors, including anything that we will place ahead of any retention project. So the other finding from the phase 1 study was that we need to consider retention mechanisms, whether that be the two that were suggested in the feasibility study were artificial reefs and groins, but other options are available for retention. That just wasn't discussed in the phase 1 study. So there are all sorts of other hybrid solutions that we can come up with that, and I'll get into that next. So phase 2 of the Sand Nourishment and Retention Pilot Project, it was recently approved by Council in January. It dives deeper into the details of the possible options for nourishment and retention, with the main objective being to develop a consistent sand nourishment program and design of a hybrid sand retention structure that mimics natural systems. So the main tasks of the phase 2 scope are to do community and stakeholder engagement. So this is the first that you met me, but we'll probably be working together on this, hopefully. I really like your involvement on the phase 2 project. So that's one objective of this phase 2 scope. Additionally, we're continuing our baseline monitoring program in partnership with Scripps Institution of Oceanography. The baseline monitoring program looks at the elevations on our beaches and how much sand we lose or gain. And it's done with a citizen science program that is run through Scripps, and SOS does most of that work on a volunteer basis. So that program has been going on since 2020, and it'll continue, and it has been continuous. Additionally, we're going to be doing engineering analysis and design, which includes a design competition that will yield 3 innovative design solutions for retaining sand. And then finally, we'll be doing environmental compliance and permitting, so all under this phase 2 contract. So as the name suggests, there are 2 components to the Sand Nourishment and Retention Pilot Project. The Sand Nourishment Program will determine a high-quality source of sediment for adding to our littoral cell, which is our current, and our adding to our beaches in general. And then also that sand source will be used to pre-fill the beach where we end up putting the retention structure, whatever that structure is, and wherever that ends up going, we have to place sand in order to retain sand, because we have no natural sand, very little natural sand flow to stop or capture. We need to place that sand first and foremost. So, so part of this contract is to find that sand source. So we're going to look immediately offshore, which is a new thing. This is not something that Sandag has looked at before. And we're going to be looking offshore so that we could potentially use a smaller dredge equipment that could be more readily available, more easily deployed, more done on a more consistent basis, or done on a more as needed basis. And it's it's just easier to operate than the large dredge that goes into the harbor every year, or the large dredge that comes around Cape Horn to our shore for the regional beach sand projects. That one is really large and a different type of dredge. So that is a really big component of this project, and just want to emphasize that we can't have retention without that nourishment component. And then so for the retention part of things, we're just in the very beginning of designing a hybrid retention structure that retains that place sand, but will offer also multiple benefits. So not just sand retention, but hoping for other things like improved beach access or ecological benefits. And we're inviting that innovation through this design competition. So the design competition, it's like in its infancy now, but we already have competitors that are lining up to be part of this. They're from all over the world. So we have folks that are interested from Staten Island, from New Jersey, and I heard the Netherlands. And so we have lots of interest in this competition. It's really going to be quite fun to go through this. So there's some examples of design competitions that I kind of tried to highlight here. The Living Breakwaters in Staten Island, that was from the Rebuild by Design competition that happened post-Hurricane Sandy. And that one was, that design there yielded a low relief reef concept that was composed of biologically enhanced concrete that is designed to lessen beach erosion and restore marine ecosystems. So sounds kind of like what we want here, right? So all the designs are going to be required to meet a minimum design criteria, which is currently in development by our lead contractor, or lead coastal engineering contractor. We envision the design teams to be looking to natural sand retention structures as their examples to follow. So those are things like dunes, headlands, and surf reefs. And then 3 conceptual designs will result from the competition, and then that will be brought forward to the community through outreach events, and a final design will be recommended by and brought to the council in early 2024. So the design competition is actually only 6 to 9 months of real designing and real innovation, and we'll be asking for all of your input. So the reason this is unique is that once we have this design competition and we get a design out of it, we're going straight into permitting. We're going straight into final design and permitting. And that's all by design, so that we don't have any more stalling, because we all know that we needed it yesterday. So the environmental compliance and permitting part of the project will take about 1 to 2 years, 1.5 years, which is pretty good for this type of effort. You know, we're going to be pretty aggressive about it, and we're getting things going with the permitting process even as we speak. And so we hope to have a shovel-ready project by 2025. So challenges. So permitting is the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges that we have, though this project is permittable through the Coastal Commission. So there's a section 30235 of the Coastal Act, which permits seawalls and structures that provide for beach and ocean-related uses, so long as those structures don't impact the movement of sand to a level down coast that is unmitigatable, or to a level that is going to cause harm to beaches to the south. So that, aside from that, the design of a structure, local and regional support is also really important to our permitting aspects of things. We need that support in order to keep moving through the permitting process. The Phase 2 project process and the design competition have been deliberately organized to allow the project to be permitted by the Coastal Commission. So we've been really hard at work kind of behind the scenes on this design and on the process that we're moving forward through with this project. So we're going to be, we've been curtailing the process for that specific reason of getting that permit. And we're doing that by encouraging the creation of a design that limits downcoast impacts. So that's one of the design criteria. Garnering support from the project through public outreach, public education, and through this public design competition process, which I'm not sure if I mentioned will be judged by a jury and a steering committee that'll be represented by folks from the community and also regional experts. And then we are hoping our competitive teams will provide retention designs that mimic natural structures. These are things, or natural retention structures. These are nature-based approaches, as I mentioned earlier in the talk about the Cardiff Living Shoreline. These are things that are fundable right now and that are permittable. So we're curtailing the design to be within those concepts and within the climate of the permitting climate right now. And our designs are expected to deliver multiple benefits that can be harnessed by a myriad of different coastal users, and this is right in line with the Coastal Commission's mission. So funding is another hurdle that we face, and we intend to tackle this challenge by designing the project that'll meet objectives of current funding mechanisms. A lot of these funding sources have come out of the federal bipartisan infrastructure bill, and we're designing these projects that meet the objectives of different funding sources. So different funding sources include the State Department of Parks and Recreation, and the Ocean Protection Council, and the State Coastal Conservancy, all of which really, really want to see some nature-based or nature-mimicking solutions. The reason for that is basically because nature-based solutions can adapt to different climate conditions and different ocean conditions, and they're seen as being, their longevity is better, way better than just putting sand on the beach. So while we work on the long-term projects, we have some short-term projects that we're working on that'll be implemented within the next 1 to 2 years. And these are projects that use either small amounts of sand or existing resources on site, and they'll provide wave run-up and flood protection. And so the couple that I'm highlighting tonight are our scoop projects, which are small beach nourishment projects that can be done when there's suitable sand that becomes available. We have our spring annual harbor dredging project, which is happening in the next 2 weeks. It'll be beginning. We're actually going deeper into the harbor this go around, and there is more sediment available. So that process will hopefully yield more sand than it has in decades. Then we also have our Buccaneer Beach Protection Project, which is also another kind of project in its infancy. I've only been here for like 9 months, so all of these projects are almost all of them are in their infancy, but this will entail reconfiguring the management of Loma Alta Creek and the mouth management specifically, and then importing sand annually to maintain the height of the beach and prevent the flooding of Pacific Street behind Buccaneer Beach. And then finally, I'm working to restore the tidal influence and the natural flow at San Luis Rey river mouth. So SCOOP, there's been a lot of kind of discussion and a little confusion about SCOOP. SCOOP is stands for Sand Compatibility Opportunistic Use Permits. The SCOOP program is governed by permits from the state and federal agencies, the Coastal Commission, the Army Corps of Engineers, Regional Board. They direct the placement of compatible opportunistic sand. So opportunistic sand can come from developments like basements, like parking basements. It can come from restoration projects like in Buena Vista Lagoon or in San Luis Rey. And it can come from offshore sources. The city we conquered all of our scoop permits in September 2022, which gives us one more step closer to being able to put sand on our beach. Through these permits, the city has the ability to place 150,000 cubic yards per year along the strand from Seagaze to Pine, and then in South Oceanside from Oceanside Boulevard to Buccaneer Beach. You kind of see that there. So our permits allow us to place sand from September to February, and that's to avoid peak beach times and to avoid Grenion runs that happen from March to August. And so just FYI, I'm working on a scoop project that is probably going to yield 100,000 cubic yards of sand, which is about half of what we get from the harbor each year. And this is from a development that is going to break ground in Solana Beach. So we are reaching far and wide for sand opportunities. So scoop is great, but it's also super challenging to use. Scoop authorizes the city to place sand on our beaches, but it does not authorize us to go and extract sand. So the opportunistic part of the acronym here it means that it's sand that's already been approved to be removed from a site to be export material, and then scoop permit enables us to go grab it before it's placed in a landfill or before it's taken to a development that needs that fill. So one of the biggest challenges is that we have to wait for that sand to become available. Another challenge is finding good quality opportunistic sand. We really don't want and actually cannot place sand that is fine grained. That leaves our beach real fast, causes water quality issues. And so we want good, high quality sand to come from these sources. And that's also really challenging. So, and then other complications are logistical, like we need to have the export coming off of a project site at the time when we are allowed to place sand. We need to place sand on a beach and not we need an area to be able to land onto, so if the tides aren't right, then we can't just dump sand into the water. We want to place it on the beach and try and build up the beach, so the timing of hauling and placement is complicated. We have competition from developments that need fill, so unless it's a project that is in Oceanside and we can condition that project to bring that sand to our beach, or to work with us at least on bringing the sand to the beach, then we really have no way of guaranteeing that sand to get to our beach. And then we have this other issue, which is that we're bringing sand to the beach via truck, so that encumbers our beach space, and sometimes it can happen for a long time. So this is a picture of an opportunistic sand project that I worked on in Encinitas. This is Ponto, so down from the Maria Hotel, if you've seen that new hotel, which is right above the state park. The excavation for that hotel yielded about 40,000 cubic yards of sand, which was awesome. It took about 4 to 6 weeks of trucks dumping that sand through Ponto Beach. So it was 4 to 6 weeks of beachgoers having to move around the trucks, or not able to pass through. There were water quality issues just because it does create turbidity. But this was considered a pretty successful project because it yielded so much sand, and it actually did build out that beach for a good couple years. So another short-term project that I'm working on is the San Luis Rey River mouth restoration. So I expect this to go pretty fast because the granting agencies and the permitting agencies are really interested in this project. This will involve the removal of old roadbed material that is still in the mouth. So in 2008, you can see a picture of the Pacific Street crossing. I'm sure many of you drove over that, as I did. So Pacific Street was called Pacific Street crossing was an Arizona crossing at the creek mouth or river mouth there. It was removed once the Pacific Street Bridge was constructed, but portions of it remained, and this was not intentional. It just that the city kept removing portions of the road, and then it was unknown what was beneath the sand. But over the years, it's become apparent that roadbed material is still there. So you can see on the right, that's kind of some of the remnant roadbed material. It's compacted material. I mean, you can clearly see the outline of the old road in that photo from 2010, but it remains today. So just take a look at the 2010 photo and notice that there's no sand behind that old roadbed. And then now you can see on the bottom left here, that's a photo of how much sand is impacted there. So it really doesn't freely flow to the ocean, and so this is one of those projects where I'm hoping it will help us build natural coastal resiliency and create that natural buffer space between our built environment and the ocean. And as I mentioned, this is something that the permitting agencies are really excited about because it'll improve estuary habitat, and it'll improve water quality. It'll provide improved habitat for the endangered tidewater goby and for steelhead, for southern steelhead trout. And it'll permit the river to flow freely, bringing its sediment to our beaches, which is really important. So that's a lot of information. I'll leave plenty of time for questions. And then we have a new coastal management webpage. So if you ever want to take a look at what's going on, I update that pretty frequently. Thanks.
Jayme, do we have a time yet on completion of that, the engineering study?
For the design competition?
No, I'm sorry, from the, Army Corps, yeah.
Excuse me, yeah. So the Army Corps is called a mitigation study now. It started in just this past December. That's when it kicked off, and it has 32 months to 32 months is the time frame. So they are working on it. They're in consultation with us all the time. We talk with them every other week about it, and they have their communication strategy all mapped out now. And so there is work going on with it, but they do have up to 32 months to complete that.
Is it fully funded this time?
It is fully funded for the study.
Right.
Yep.
Last time the study wasn't even fully funded.
They said it was.
Yeah, it's fully funded for the study, but beyond that, it goes, so the Army Corps process is a little convoluted, but each stage of an Army Corps project needs to go back to Congress and get put back into the work plan. So it's all about getting that prioritization in their work plan. So the design is the following thing that will happen after we get a study that says we should be doing X, Y, Z. Then we'll have to take that, and I say we, but I mean the Army Corps will have to take that to Congress and get that into the work plan, and the city will of course be pushing that along.
Now, will they be able to piggyback on top of the study research they started in 2015 when they had that 3x3 program?
Yes, yes. One thing that's very interesting is that our Phase 2 Sand Nourishment pilot project is a project that will likely be in line with one of the Army Corps' newest objectives, and that is to determine if a project can be engineered with nature. That's actually one of the objectives that they're going to have to review through their study. And so this study of ours at the city will be helping them with their efforts too, which is good. We really want to keep in consultation with them. Yeah.
So, I heard you say something about the retention devices need to meet a criteria about not impeding sand flow to the south. And, of course, if you, backfill it with quality sand, whatever it is, let's just say a groin, for example, groin being a mini kind of jetty, then of course the sand would then continue to flow south because it wouldn't be stuck, right?
Yeah.
So is that part of the strategy to do something that way?
Yeah, so the idea behind that criteria is that any impediment to sand flow could be mitigated, meaning we can move sand around or place sand to the south of any retention structure, or design it so that it can be it can allow for passage of sand when needed.
Okay.
So these are all kind of the options that I believe the design team will be fielding. So it's kind of hard because we don't have a specific structure in mind here. We have all sorts of options being thrown on the table right now. Controlled options, but with the intention that whatever design comes out, it will have to allow either sand to flow to the south, or we will have a mechanism of moving the sand to the south. And I just say to the south because that's
So,
the general way that the sand flows.
go ahead, Lisa.
And are the cities in the south planning to help us pay for any of this, since they all went nuts the minute we said groin?
Yeah,
And they all just exploded, but they're not offering to step up and pay. And we've been sending it south all these years,
yeah.
but they're not offering to pay. Is there anything that is going to get either sand from building projects that are going on to the south that comes to us as like, does it all have to come from Oceanside projects? Or
Yeah.
why can't we get some sand from there? Or let them help pay for it?
So one of the objectives of the Regional Beach Sand Project 3 is to figure out a better mechanism of placing sand and where that placement will happen. And so I'm advocating for Oceanside to be the placement spot, the feeder beach, where we get more sand because we are feeding beaches to the south.
Historically, it goes that way.
Yeah, it goes north and south in Oceanside, and not everywhere else, but in Oceanside, it does go north and south. So one thing that, we're gonna have to negotiate on is that, advocating for a larger amount to be placed, through Regional Beach Sand Project 3. But other than that, we're trying to collaborate with them and hoping for, consensus on our project.
Now, do you have an idea of how many feet from, say, the strand out, hypothetically, you would like the sand to go as far as to protect from sea level rise and wave damage? Because I know the project in Cardiff got beat up pretty badly, but we'll see what happens in the summer when the sand comes back.
Yeah.
Your project there, I mean, the waves tore it up a little bit, but it's designed to see what happens. I mean, this is all an experiment, I'm guessing.
Well, it is and it isn't. There are lots of designs being discussed, and what design comes out of it may not be very experimental.
No, I meant, first, I'm sorry, I put
Yeah.
that too good. The first question
Yeah.
about approximately how far out would you like to see the sand, say, at Wisconsin Street and the Strand go out? How far out
What
from?
size of a beach?
Right.
Okay. We haven't really set that parameter up yet. And I say that because the design competition, part of the looseness of it in that way, it could be that there are different phases that the designers will be letting us in on. So they'll say, like, instead of we're gonna do a 100-foot beach with an artificial headland, It'll be more like, we're gonna do a reef for a small period of time, see what size beach we can retain with that. Once that trigger happens, then we'll pull the riprap off. These are all hypothetical things,
Right.
like no
No.
clue what's gonna happen in that way, but. so
What
we
would
don't-
be optimum
Yeah.
as far as to protect the low-lying areas on the coastline? What would be the optimum in your experience? How much sand would be an ideal amount? Not, 300 yards, but I mean,
Yeah.
what would you, in your, just, top of the head? guess?
Yeah, I don't know that I mean, it's more of an elevation.
Right.
So we really need to raise
Right,
the elevation of the beach at
Right.
this point, and then have a beach buffer beyond that. But I don't know that I could speak to
Because
specifically.
in '05, they dredged all the way down to 600 South Strand, 500 to where Junior Seau's house was. And it was strand level 100 feet out.
Yeah.
I mean, you could play football out there. And of course, I mean, like you said, because of the nature of our sand, it lasted a while, but it went away.
Right.
So it can be done, and if we could have something that could retain it at that level, I mean, that's what you're, and I guess that's
Exactly.
kind of what you're looking for long-term.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah. The size of the beach is not something we've set up quite yet.
Right.
But we do
Ideally, that would
want a dry sand beach. Yeah, we want a space to be able to play and have
Good.
your towel down, and this is all low cost, actually no cost recreational space for residents here and residents that come here, or local folks or regional folks that come to our beaches. So we do want that recreational aspect to be enhanced.
And that is the Coastal Commission's mission, is to
Yes.
provide
Yeah.
that.
Question.
Two questions. One, I've heard that there's some concern about the environmental or biological animal issues with putting in some kind of structure. But I just came from Mexico, and they did something really innovative. They had real big bags, like 4x8, that they just had concrete in, and they just laid them out. And these are their groins, right?
Yeah.
But over the years, you have mussels and all kinds of stuff attaching themselves to it, right?
Yeah.
They don't know, it's just a structure, right? So, I mean, there's something like that I always thought, well, gee, if we have no sand and it actually goes like to the Betty's parking lot, where can those animals be, Well, anyway, that's like a question, but the other question is, when you do the San Luis Rey mouth restoration, is there any plan in there to, because there's a lot of birds and stuff that are nesting there now, because of the cooling of the water and stuff. So like, that's not working necessarily either if you remove the sand and now it's just flowing out, right?
There are, so, yeah, it's really complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not, I'm not trying to, lessen your,
No, but
My
I'm just saying,
answer-
like, that's all being considered, right?
right, exactly, yes, it's like a very holistic approach that you have to look at for every single project. It's impacting, who is it impacting, how is it impacting, like length of time, and then biological aspects and social aspects. So it's really a lot to think about for each project. So one of your questions was about reef development, and how they've done it in various places. So the Port of San Diego is doing this pilot project. This is right outside of the airport. I can't remember exactly the island that this is on, but I paddled out to it. And they use this project called e-concrete, and it's pH-friendly concrete that enables sort of rapid development of invertebrates to come and latch on there, and also the development of algae on. So these are pictures that I took right maybe half a year after it had been installed. So right now it's probably been 3 years, or 2 to 3 years. And I know that the development of the intertidal species on these specific structures is way more than the neighboring rock. And so this is just another example of something that's innovative. Not that it would necessarily work for us, don't know that yet, but we are asking those designers to be innovative with materials. Yeah.
Is it already stipulated that projects along the Strand or Pacific, if they're digging out, is that sand already in those projects that, hey, you're doing this, we want the sand? Or is that just in the planning stage?
Projects along the Strand.
Or along Pacific? Like, I mean, I see, there's one that they took out all those little domiciles and made this huge condominium. I know they dug way down into that. It would seem like it's right on the beach,
Yeah,
just a little bit south of Wisconsin.
I do have that sand at Moody's. Yeah.
Okay.
So the problem with Scoop is that it's a process, a really big process that you need to go through with the agencies. Even though it's programmatic and it's supposed to be streamlined, it does work in that way a little bit, but you really do want a larger amount of material in order to make it worthwhile. Because otherwise you're placing a small amount of sand and then it's off your beach immediately, and you've done all this work to get it going, you've hauled it all the way there, and so you just want to have like there's a threshold amount that makes it worthwhile. It's usually around 5,000 cubic yards, and from those types of developments, we get maybe 100 to 200 cubic yards max. Why is it at Moody's? Well, there are some occasional sand maintenance projects that we need to either use sandbags for or to do back beach maintenance projects to infill it, and so in that case, then we use that material. So it's not going to the landfill.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I understand the coastal commission is the only permitting agency that you would need to deal with for the permanent,
Good question.
like Sandbag, or someone can't put the kibosh on it or something?
No, there's other agencies too. So for a sand retention project, we'll need a coastal commission permit. We'll need a state lands commission approval. We have state lands, our area to 3 miles out off of our coastline in Oceanside is granted tidelands. So we have a little leeway to work with the State Lands Commission. We have a little more leniency from them. We'll also need an Army Corps of Engineers permit from their regulatory division, and a regional water quality control board permit. So the permitting, and then additionally CEQA analysis, so CEQA compliance, so that's an environmental impact report. So it is extensive, the permitting process. Yeah.
I think the South Strand has some safety issues at this point for pedestrians, cars, bikers, and swimmers.
Mm-hmm.
What is the plan there? I know the riprap is starting to recede.
Mm-hmm.
What is the short-term plan there?
Yeah,
Make it safe.
short-term plan is the city has begun discussions about how we need to restack the riprap in city areas. So just beginning to discuss how to do that and what priority it is. Our permitting priorities with the Coastal Commission, we have them in a priority list. So it's just one more thing to add.
Well, where does that fall? This is a safety issue.
Right, yes, yeah, I
Just so,
understand.
where does it fall?
Well, it's not 100% on our list yet. We haven't fully discussed how we're gonna do it, but it is something that we're aware of and that we're beginning to think about exactly like geographic extents on how to do it and how we should prioritize it.
So in the meantime, it is a safety issue.
Which part?
The South Strand.
Actually accessing the road on the South Strand?
Walking along the South Strand, at probably a good portion of the time, with the wave action, with the rocks being thrown on the strand, with cars having to deal with the bikers and the pedestrians,
Yeah.
dealing with the puddling on the strand.
Yeah.
Well,
All I can say is that we occasionally close it when we feel the need
Very
to.
rare.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's undermining the road.
Right.
Again.
It's-
We just fixed it.
We just fixed it, and it's a safety issue.
And why was that get priority over
Right.
basic sand?
This is safety.
It's not a priority over anything really, it just hasn't been addressed at this point yet.
So how do we get it addressed?
Well, you can tell me, and you can also tell the council.
Okay.
But we waited so long to figure the sand thing out, let's not wait that long to figure out the riprap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We got to protect what we
Yeah.
got.
Our
Right.
structures, this strand will probably not withstand that timeline.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I am working on a sand nourishment project, that scoop project that will bring some sand. But it'll be so much sand that it will encumber the beaches for a while. So I'm
As long as
giving
it protects
fair
it,
warning.
it's okay.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately, I don't have all those answers, but I do know that the best way is to just communicate with your council.
Take pictures and go to council.
So
About a lot of
then
pictures.
they,
And they're done.
And if they don't know it,
Don't mention that.
Yeah.
if they don't know,
It's not surprising.
Well, along with this, website that Jayme said that she has, we have updates. I will also, on our website, ocna101.org, we have the link for the all council, so it goes to all of them. And, it's a good way to let problems and things be known. And then usually, like, I know Ryan Kine is very interested in this project, so you might pick it up and you might follow up with him to get it on the agenda.
but in doing so, I can safely quote you by saying it's not on the priority list today.
It's not something that we are actively working towards a permit with the Coastal Commission on.
Nobody's managing it.
No,
It's
there's
not on-
it's not a project yet, it's a discussion item,
Mhm.
yeah. But it's not on.
But it's,
How are we talking sand without the riprap?
Yeah, but okay, so if, this is how, when I want stuff done, I will, send an email to the council, usually one or two will respond. And then I try to set up an appointment with them and show pictures and stuff or invite them to look at it. And then they get it on the agenda. And then it's discussed and then an action is given to staff to do something.
so this is the council or the manager?
Council,
Council,
yeah. So, I mean.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's,
I should have been more eloquent.
no, that's fine, that's fine. I mean, I just want to make sure that there's a path
Yeah.
for your concern.
Mhm.
Not that it's not on the list, it's being discussed, but how to get it on the list and to up that priority. Glenn and I are working on upping the priority of the side streets beyond Coast Highway, before Coast Highway is redeveloped, because we're already having, bypass traffic issues, especially with all these wonderful restaurants and the parking and stuff that are coming from that, so these are what I would suggest that you do. And also, OCNA often will try to work on some of these things too by elevating them up. So we can talk about that too. But I did notice the time, and I do want to respect everyone's evening and maybe dinner plans. A great topic and a great presentation.
Lot
I
of
really
information.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so I did want to let everyone know that we are having Eric Joyce, the District 1 representative, on our next meeting in
There you
April. Yeah, so there we go, right? We can have a meeting with him. And then we're working with St. Mary's on which Wednesday, because we don't want to have it, we can only have it on Wednesday, but we don't want to have it the same night there's a council meeting, right? So I don't know what date that is exactly. But I welcome you to come, and also I can elevate this with Eric as well as Ryan Kine, and we can try to get some of this, drive that priority higher. I want to thank you all for coming, and I want to thank Jayme for a very informative talk, and I hope that you'll come back again when there's more, updates and stuff. If you have any other questions, please, you can always, if you don't know Jayme's, email, you can always send them to me at ocna101@gmail.com.
At Gmail, yeah.
Confuse me. At ocna101@gmail.com, and I will forward it to whoever, okay? Or we can have a discussion and meet more and then have a game plan.
And we're gonna post this?
Yes, we'll post it on our website,
Great.
right? And then also the link